The letter is thin, official-looking. It slides under the heavy oak door of my house, the house I bought, the house we made a home. I hear the soft scraping sound, a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard in my soul now. It lands on the Persian rug, a vibrant red and blue that suddenly feels wrong, stained. I pick it up. My name isn't on it. Just Occupant. My hands are cold, colder than the November air outside. The paper shakes. My eyes scan the words. Legal jargon I don't understand at first, but the meaning seeps in, chillingly. It's a notice. A notice about this house. Our house. A notice that says the sale is pending. The sale? What sale? My blood freezes in my veins. I look around the living room, at the paintings on the wall, the worn sofa where we used to curl up. This is mine. It is ours. But this paper says it belongs to someone else now. Or soon will. The air is thick, heavy with unspoken dread. My breath catches in my throat, a silent scream building inside. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is when you hear this. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. We built this life, brick by brick, memory by memory. It wasn't always perfect, whose is? But it was solid. Or I thought it was solid. The house was the anchor. Not just a structure of wood and stone, but the physical manifestation of our shared future, our security. We poured everything into it, sweat equity on weekends, shared dreams over late-night coffee sketching out renovations, the quiet satisfaction of seeing our vision come to life. It was more than a house, it was a promise of forever. My husband, John. He was reliable. That was the word I always used. Not flashy, not prone to grand gestures, but steady. Like a bedrock. He handled the finances, the bills, the practical side of things. I handled the home, the life inside it. It was a division of labor that felt natural, comfortable. Trust was the foundation, thicker than the concrete slab our house sat on. I signed documents when he asked, mortgage papers, refinancing forms, taxes. Never questioned it. Why would I? He was John. My husband. My bedrock. The first crack appeared subtly. He became distant. Not angry, not mean, just elsewhere. His phone was a constant companion, clutched tight, screen angled away from me. Late nights at the office became more frequent, then weekend trips for conferences or meetings, excuses that felt thin, like tracing paper. You could almost see through them, but you wanted to believe the drawing was real. I told myself it was stress, pressure at work. I tried harder. Cooked his favorite meals, suggested weekend getaways, left little notes in his lunch. He accepted them, thanked me, but the distance remained, a cold, widening chasm between us. Then came the letter. The one addressed to Occupant, the one talking about a pending sale. It made no sense. We weren't selling the house. We hadn't discussed it, hadn't listed it, hadn't signed anything. My hand trembled as I dialed John's number. He answered, voice tight. What is this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. A pause. A long, heavy silence that spoke volumes before he did. What are you talking about? He said too quickly. This letter. About the house. A sale? Another pause. I could almost hear the wheels turning in his head, the frantic scramble for an explanation.
Oh, it's
a formality. Just something with the mortgage company. Refinancing things. Don't worry about it. Refinancing? Selling our house was a formality for refinancing? The lie was clumsy, insulting in its transparency, but I was grasping at straws, desperately wanting to believe him. I wanted to believe the letter was a mistake, a clerical error, anything but the truth that was starting to dawn, cold and sharp. I tried to push it away, told myself I was being paranoid.
He was just stressed.
The letter was confusing, that was all. But the seed of doubt was planted, a tiny, irritating pebble in my shoe. I couldn't ignore it. I started looking, quietly, when he wasn't around, searching through his desk, his briefcase, the file cabinet where we kept important papers. My heart pounded in my chest with every rustle of paper, every creak of the floorboards. I felt like a thief in my own home, driven by a need I couldn't articulate, a fear that had no name yet. I found snippets. A real estate company's letterhead I didn't recognize. An email chain with unfamiliar names. Mentions of closing dates, appraisals. The puzzle pieces were scattered, making no sense on their own, but hinting at a bigger picture, a distorted, terrifying image I couldn't quite see. He became more watchful, more guarded. The phone was glued to his hand. He'd jump if I entered the room unexpectedly. Our conversations became stilted, superficial. The chasm wasn't just wide now, it was a canyon, and I was standing on one side, watching him disappear into the darkness on the other. The fear solidified into a cold, hard lump in my stomach. This wasn't just about distance or stress anymore. Something was terribly wrong. I decided to call the real estate company, whose letterhead I'd found. My voice shook as I gave my address. The agent was polite, professional. Too professional. He confirmed the listing, the pending sale. My breath hitched. But we didn't list the house, I said, my voice barely a whisper. A confused pause. Ma'am, the listing agreement is signed. Your husband signed, and your signature is here too. My signature? But I hadn't signed anything. Not for selling this house. Not ever.
Could you
send me a copy of that agreement? I asked, my voice trembling now, a tremor that started in my hands and spread through my entire body. He agreed, sounding slightly hesitant. I hung up the phone and stood in the silent kitchen, the world tilting on its axis. My signature. Forged. The word echoed in the emptiness of the room. Forged. He forged my signature. To sell our house. Without telling me.
Why?
Why would he do this? When the email arrived with the scanned document, I stared at it for a long time. There it was. My name, scrawled in a way that almost looked like mine, but not quite. A hurried, shaky imitation. And John's signature, bold and clear, right beside it. The date was months ago. Months he had been planning this, working towards this, while we ate dinner, watched TV, slept in the same bed. The betrayal was a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I confronted him that night, held the printed agreement in my shaking hand. He denied it at first, eyes wide, a performance of shock and indignation that was almost convincing. Where did you get that? It's fake, he blustered. But the certainty in my voice, the cold, hard anger I couldn't hide, chipped away at his facade. He crumbled, not into remorse, but into a pathetic stream of excuses. Business trouble.
Debt.
A temporary solution. He'd fix it. He'd buy it back. Lies piling on lies, a desperate, flimsy wall against the truth that was now fully illuminated. And then I asked about her. The emails, the trips, the late nights. The dam of denial burst, revealing a cesspool of deceit. Her. A woman I didn't know, a client who became something more. Her business was failing. He was helping her, using our money, using our house. The house I loved, the home we built, was being stripped away, its value siphoned off to save her failing venture. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a specific, calculated cruelty that stole not just my home, but the very narrative of my life. My bedrock was crumbling, revealing quicksand beneath. Panic set in. The sale was pending. How long did I have? What did I even do? I felt like I was drowning, flailing in deep water with no land in sight. I called lawyers. Family lawyers, real estate lawyers. I explained the situation, the forged signature, the pending sale. Some were sympathetic, some sounded skeptical over the phone. It was expensive. Retainers I didn't know if I could afford now that my financial future was hanging by a thread attached to my husband's deceit. The system felt slow, cumbersome, built for orderly transactions, not for undoing a meticulously constructed betrayal. Time was a luxury I didn't have. Every day felt like the house was slipping further away, becoming a line item on someone else's balance sheet. John moved out. Not because I asked him to, but because the truth was out, the pretense gone. He left quietly, taking a few suitcases, leaving behind the shell of the life he had so carelessly dismantled. The house felt empty, haunted by his absence and the looming threat of its own disappearance. I walked through the rooms, touching the walls, the furniture, trying to imprint them on my memory, afraid they would soon be gone, replaced by strangers. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My mind raced, replaying every conversation, every moment, looking for signs I had missed, clues I should have seen. How could I have been so blind? So trusting? The shame was a bitter taste in my mouth. The rising challenges were relentless. The real estate agent, pressured by the buyers, started calling more frequently. The buyers themselves, unaware of the fraud, sent polite but increasingly firm inquiries about the closing date. My initial lawyer, while competent, seemed overwhelmed by the complexities, suggesting options that felt like compromises, giving up ground I wasn't willing to concede. He talked about negotiating, about damage control. But I didn't want damage control. I wanted the house back, untouched, untainted by his lies. I wanted justice. Not revenge, not exactly, but a rebalancing of the scales that had been tipped so brutally against me. My fears started morphing. The initial panic gave way to a cold, simmering anger. Anger at John, yes, but also at the situation, at the way the system seemed weighted against the wronged. Proving fraud felt like climbing a sheer cliff face. I needed evidence, hard proof that went beyond my word against his forged signature. I needed something undeniable. I started digging deeper. Financial records. Bank statements. He had handled everything, but there had to be a paper trail, even a digital one. I accessed accounts I had joint access to, accounts I rarely looked at. I found large transfers. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Accounts linked to a business name I hadn't heard before. Her business. The pieces clicked into place, forming a sickeningly clear picture of how he had funneled money, our money, into her failing venture. The forged signature on the house sale wasn't an isolated act. It was the final, desperate move in a long, calculated scheme. The weight of it was crushing. He hadn't just betrayed our marriage. He had tried to steal my future, my security, the very ground beneath my feet, to prop up another woman. The scale of the deception was breathtaking, audacious in its cruelty. How could someone you loved, someone you trusted implicitly, do something so utterly destructive? The pain was a physical ache, a constant pressure behind my eyes, in my chest. But within that pain, something hardened. The helplessness I felt at the beginning began to recede, replaced by a fierce, protective instinct. This house wasn't just property. It was the last vestige of my independence, my stability. Losing it meant losing everything. I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't. My research led me to a different kind of lawyer. Not a typical divorce attorney, but someone specializing in financial fraud, in undoing complex transactions. I found her through a desperate online search, her name appearing in articles about challenging fraudulent real estate deals. Her reputation was formidable. She was expensive, more expensive than the others, but there was a steel in her voice, a quiet confidence that resonated with the hardening resolve inside me. I mortgaged a small piece of land I owned separately, pulled together every last dollar I had access to. This was it. All in. I laid out everything for her. The timeline, the forged signature, the financial transfers, the husband's lies, the girlfriend's business. She listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned forward. "This is textbook," she said, her voice low but firm. "Undue influence, fraud, potentially criminal elements. A forged signature on a deed is a nullity. It doesn't matter what the buyers thought they were getting. The transaction is invalid from the start. We move to have the sale flagged immediately. Then we go for reversal. We have the evidence." Her words were like a lifeline. They cut through the fog of panic and despair. "We have the evidence." Yes, I did. I had started gathering everything, documenting every find, every bank record, every email thread I could recover. I had even found messages between John and the girlfriend discussing the sale, the timing, her financial woes, his solution. They were damning. Proof that this wasn't a misunderstanding or a lapse in judgment, but a deliberate conspiracy. This was my turning point. Sitting across from this sharp, capable woman, I felt the shift. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a participant, an active agent in my own rescue. The fear was still there, a low hum beneath my skin, but it was overshadowed by a fierce, cold determination. I would not just survive this, I would fight. And I would win. We worked relentlessly. My lawyer, Sarah, was a force of nature. She moved quickly, filing motions, gathering depositions, building the case piece by piece. She explained the process, the legal strategy. We needed to prove the signature was forged, yes, but we also needed to show intent, to connect the sale directly to his fraudulent scheme with a girlfriend. The financial records, the communications, they painted a clear picture of malice and deceit. John, through his lawyer, tried to fight back. He claimed I was unstable, that I had signed the papers and simply forgotten, that I was fabricating the fraud out of spite. Gaslighting, amplified by legal jargon. It was infuriating, a fresh layer of betrayal. But his claims were easily refuted by the evidence. A forensic document examiner confirmed the signature was mine. The bank records showed a clear pattern of transfers coinciding with his statements about the girlfriend's business. His own communications sealed his fate. The buyers were brought into it, blindsided and angry. They had put down a deposit, secured financing. They were innocent parties caught in the crossfire of John's fraud. They initially threatened to sue me, but Sarah quickly clarified their legal position. Their claim was against John, not me. The house was not legally sold. It was based on a void transaction. Their frustration shifted, turning towards John. He had not only betrayed me, but also the unsuspecting buyers, dragging them into his mess. Despite the mounting evidence, the pressure was immense. The court date loomed. There were delays, procedural hurdles. Each delay felt like a victory for John, another chance for something to go wrong. The house still felt precarious, like it was balanced on the edge of a cliff, waiting for a final push. There were days I wanted to give up, days the weight of the betrayal and the stress of the legal battle felt too heavy to bear. But then I would look at the house, my home, and remember what I was fighting for. Not just property, but my sense of self, my autonomy, my future. The day of the hearing arrived. The courtroom was sterile, formal. John was there, looking pale and strained, sitting beside his lawyer. The girlfriend was not present, wisely, I assumed. The buyers were there too, looking anxious and bewildered. I sat beside Sarah, my heart pounding, a strange mix of fear and steely resolve coursing through me. This was it. The culmination of months of pain, fear, and relentless work. Sarah presented our case. Calmly, methodically. She started with the forged signature, the expert analysis. Then she laid out the financial trail, the transfers to the girlfriend's business, lining up the dates, the amounts. She presented the communications between John and the girlfriend, messages that explicitly discussed using the house sale funds for her business debts. The narrative was undeniable. This was a deliberate, fraudulent scheme to steal my asset to fund his mistress's failing venture. John's lawyer attempted to counter, rehashing the claims of my supposed instability, the forgotten signature. It was weak, desperate. Sarah dismantled his arguments with surgical precision, using John's own documented actions and words against him. And then came the moment. Sarah held up the deed, the real estate contract, the documents with the forged signature. She looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and strong, "this transaction is void ab initio. It was initiated through fraud. A forged signature carries no legal weight. The property was never legitimately conveyed. My client remains the rightful owner, and we request this court confirm that fact and order the immediate reversal and nullification of this fraudulent sale." The air in the courtroom was thick with tension. I watched John. His face was ashen. He had clearly underestimated me. He had thought he could execute his plan in secret, cover his tracks, and I would be too naive, too hurt, too weak to uncover the truth and fight back. He thought he had already won, that the sale was a done deal, just waiting for the legal formalities to catch up. But he hadn't accounted for the depth of my resolve, the meticulousness of my lawyer, or the sheer volume of evidence I had uncovered. He was blindsided. The bedrock he thought he was had crumbled, leaving him exposed. The judge listened intently, reviewed the documents.
He looked at John, then back at Sarah.
"Ms. Hayes," the judge said, addressing Sarah, "your documentation is compelling. The evidence of forgery and fraudulent intent is clear and undisputed by any credible counter-evidence presented. A forged signature on a deed renders the deed void. This court finds that the purported sale of the property located at address is null and void." A wave of relief washed over me, so profound it made my knees weak. It was over. Just like that. The house was safe. It was mine. He had tried to steal it, to give it away, to erase my connection to it, but he had failed. Miserably. The judge continued, ordering the immediate reversal of all related transactions, the return of the buyer's deposit by John, and the clearing of the title. He even hinted at potential criminal repercussions, mentioning that the evidence of forgery and fraud could be forwarded to the relevant authorities. John's face was a mask of shock and disbelief. He looked like he had been physically struck. The man who had been my husband, my bedrock, the one I had trusted with everything, sat there, exposed, defeated, his elaborate scheme collapsing around him in real time. He had aimed to leave me with nothing, and in his attempt, he had lost everything: his marriage, his reputation, his freedom potentially. Walking out of the courtroom was surreal. The air outside felt different, lighter. The weight I had been carrying for months had lifted. The buyers approached me, their anger now directed solely at John, apologizing for their earlier pressure, wishing me well. Sarah walked beside me, her earlier professional demeanor softening into a shared sense of triumph. We had done it. We had taken the tangled mess of lies and deceit and straightened it out, piece by painstaking piece, until the truth was undeniable. The victory was immense, but it was also profoundly sad. I had saved my home, my financial security, but the cost had been the demolition of my marriage, the shattering of my trust. The man I had loved was a stranger, a betrayer. The house was safe, but it would never feel quite the same. The memories were still there, the good ones and now the terrible ones, layered over each other. It was a victory, yes, a reclaiming of what was rightfully mine, but it came with the heavy baggage of profound loss. Rebuilding starts now. Not just the life I had, but a new life, built on firmer ground I had fought for and won myself. The house is no longer just a structure. It's a monument to resilience, a testament to the strength I found when I thought I had none left. It stands solid and secure, a reminder that even when the bedrock crumbles, you can find the strength within yourself to stand tall and fight for what is yours. The view from the window looks different now. Not just the familiar street, but the horizon wide open, full of possibility. The future isn't something to be scared of anymore. It's something I build, brick by brick, on my own terms. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.